So my argument is that Spike Lee wants viewers to recognize that racism is everywhere, and it creates problems that are difficult to face and deal with. And so the scene I picked was the one about racial stereotypes, where Mookie first talks to Pino in the pizza shop about about black people, and Pino is openly racist, and he says, all black people are niggas. But Mookie is just trying to help him understand that he's kind of like telling himself something that's not true, because he just asks him about his favorite artists and athletes, and they actually happen to be black. And during this conversation, visibly, Pino's uncomfortable, like he's looking down and kind of unsure of himself when he's usually super strict, not strict, just full of himself, and he's got a big personality. But this topic of racism just made him uncomfortable. And then the second part of the scene is when Mookie, Pino, a Latino man, a cop, and then the Korean store owner each just say like a string of offensive racial slurs about one another. And yeah, it's uncomfortable to watch, and different techniques are used. So first for visual language, in the beginning of the scene when it's just Mookie and Pino, they're both in the center of the frame at a sort of medium close up. There's very plain background, and I think the goal is just for us to focus on the dialogue. And by having them in a tight frame too, it helps us just feel more intimate and be with the actors, and just see what they're saying. And when comparing both parts of it, the first conversation is shot at a omniscient point of view, so we just kind of see them. But then when it goes from person to person, it's shot at a subjective view, so they're looking right at us, and it's also very zoomed in and works so close to them that it feels like they're talking to us. And I think that's what the goal. That's what Spike Lee wanted. He just wanted it for his audience to just kind of feel what the actors are feeling and what it's like to be spoken to in a bad way, and just show how damaging words can be. And it kind of just helps explain, why everyone was so angry in the film, and why violence can occur from racism. So in terms of positive and negative space, there isn't a lot of negative space throughout the whole thing, because again, the dialogue is what's most important. And for each of the people that we listen to about their little speech, we see their quick view of their background to kind of know who they are, and but it's quickly zoomed into their face, so we're just paying attention to what they have to say. It almost makes you feel trapped when they pull you in like that with the zoom shot. And I think this relates to today's time too. Like even just listening to them and watching it, we're uncomfortable. So actually, like doing something to help combat racism, it's just difficult for everyone, no matter what race you are or where you're from. And now looking at sound, I noticed that in the shop, jazz was playing. I think it's non-diegetic because Sal doesn't like music in his shop. Um, and I think jazz, the fact that it's jazz, is also significant because black people invented jazz, and I think that's something that racist people will listen to and say, "Oh yeah, racist. I hate black people or whatnot." Yeah, they listen to jazz. It's just like how Pino's favorite player was Magic Johnson, and he just couldn't explain why he's different. I think it's kind of the same thing. And I feel like there's very few sound effects, again, because dialogue is the main focus. I didn't hear almost any, and even when each person was going, saying their little 10 seconds, there's not really any background. So definitely more vocal sounds compared to environmental sounds. We didn't usually hear what we usually hear when people are on the street and whatnot. It was pretty like empty because we just had to focus on what they were saying. And in terms of the volume, they definitely raised their voices when saying the racist comments because it just looked like they were full of rage. And by them raising their voice and it being loud, we just feel their anger better. And now looking at the editing, I feel like cut edits were used mostly here. In the shop, it was just shot reverse shots going from one to the other. Just at first, it started at like at a little farther away, but we were mostly just seeing that. And when Mookie first started with his little speech, um, I think the cuts were pretty dramatic because each scene was in a different place, or each shot was in a different place, different backgrounds, different people, and I think that's what makes me believe it's formless editing style, just because it seemed like there was discontinuity within each cut, and I don't think any techniques, no dissolve edits or match cuts, were used to kind of hide the transitions. We just needed to see it, and this just also just tricked our brains, made us more confused and more kind of vulnerable. And this ties to also intellectual editing because um, we need to understand that from each cut, each of the characters is different from one another, right? And they have about 10 seconds. And since there's so many cuts within such a short period of time, if they were to just hide the cuts, I think it would just be too much for us and we wouldn't be able to process whatever they were saying. But just by drawing our focus to the edit, it's less confusing. So, yeah.